South Africa are not in the best of places currently when it comes to this particular test match. You know that it is day three of the third test between South Africa and England, and it was a woeful batting display from both sides today. We're going to have to talk about it and analyze it and see what went wrong. Because after the first South Africa's innings, where they got bowled out for 118, England's top six didn't really do much of. They weren't really as impressive either. So it gives us a little bit of insight into what is going on. Let's get into this particular game. Let's talk about this particular game. Let's see what happened in this match. Let's analyze our batting. Let's analyze the future. Let's talk about everything that we need to talk about when it comes to this first day um, of the test match, in our opinion. Because obviously the 2 days weren't there, obviously because of Her Majesty the Queen passing away, and then obviously the opening match rained out. Opening day rained out. So makes it a bit difficult for us to be able to really have a proper game of test cricket that we were hoping for at the oval. But it is what it is at the moment, and we need to accept it that this was the situation and play the best cricket that we can play. What I can say today is that we never play the best cricket that we can play, and I was really disappointed with the way we approached our batting in this particular match. There's a problem over there that we need to speak about, but let's get into today's show. If you are new to the channel, if that button is still red at the bottom of your screen, please click it, click subscribe, click that notification bell for all future videos, please. Don't forget to smash the like button, comment, share, and do all of those things too. But become a patron today if you want to help us grow South African cricket, promote South African cricket, and do everything that we possibly can to try and promote it as best as possible. Please get involved with the Patreon account. We have different tiers for you according to what type of fan you are, whether you are a just a normal fan, a super fan, or you can be a fanatic. That's your decision to decide whether you are or not, dependable on the tier that you pick. Like I said, please go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all your reports as well. The reviews, reports, all of those things are on the website. So go ahead there and go follow that too. Also, download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics Magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. This is the latest issue with Dean Alga on the front cover. It's all about being a captain. So please go ahead and download that issue as well. So without further ado, guys, let's get straight into today's video. Let's analyze everything and see where we are. A very good evening. Welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine. This is your review show. I'm your host, Khalid. This is Justin with me today. And today we're going to be talking about South Africa third test, day three. The performance today, the batting performance was horrible, terrible. I don't know. You can use as many adjectives as you want to try to describe it. But this is the match summary. South Africa were bowled out for 118 with Marco Jansen and Kyle Zondo our top scorers. Ollie Robinson bowled excellently with a 5 for 49. Stuart Broad was excellent with 4 for 41. James Anderson getting that 1 for 16. In England's reply, Ollie Pope standing out over there, of course. He was excellent. I really thought that he batted beautifully. I've always been a big fan of Ollie Pope. I like his attitude and his mentality and his approach to the game. So they ended bad light stopped play. I don't understand why it didn't really look like the weather was that bad. But apparently there was quite a big shadow that was shining, that was hovering over the pitch. So hanging over the pitch, of course, that might have made it a little bit more difficult for them to play or see things. But it's strange that they want to have this. And I agree with Nasser Hussain on today's coverage of the game. But look at Marco Jansen, 4 for 34, and Kagiso Rabada bowled terribly in the beginning, but came back well. I think he was 50 runs for 0 wickets or something like that, or 49 runs for 0 wickets in six overs. It was a terrible performance from him at the beginning, but he pulled it back nicely, got the 2 wickets, and Anik Nokio bowling with the pace that he normally bowls at. A good performance from him. I think a decent performance. I do think that we can get into the bowling a little bit later. But I actually agree with Nasser Hussain and his comments after the game. Why can't they have that extra half an hour before the game? I mean, they already start the game at 11 o'clock. They might as well start it at 10:30 instead of having it afterwards in September, where the light does tend to dim a little bit later on in England, especially. Why take that risk for that the extra half an hour not being given? Rather get that extra half an hour before and start the game at 10:30 in the morning, which should be okay for in England conditions. So, in from that point of view, with all the game time that has been lost and will be lost, that would have been the smarter move tomorrow. But it does seem that they're going to try and give the extra half an hour in afterwards. Let's see what happens with regards to that. But Justin, let's talk about the batting performance first and foremost. Terrible performance from South Africa. They looked like complete amateurs in the middle over there, leaving the incorrect deliveries, not standing weirdly out in the middle of the pitch, not trying to push for that off stump. I thought when you saw the ball moving that way, why not just move off stump, leave anything that's outside the line, put bat on ball when it's coming in, and play off your legs. If you want to get the ball, if the ball's coming in too much off your legs, that off the leg game plan, that Graham Smith speciality shot should be used a lot more with a pitch like this when the ball is moving across your pads like that. So I think it was poor shot selection first and foremost, poor decision making with regards to which shots to play in this particular match from South Africa's point of view. I think composure is lacking and bravery is lacking because England played a completely opposite style of cricket to what we were trying to play. They came try to walk down the pitch at our bowlers and try to play aggressively. We tried to play more conservatively, try to and it was in the end our downfall. But what's your assessment of the batting performance? What do you where do you think it's going wrong with South Africa in that top six?
Good, good evening, everyone. Oh, firstly, I just think at the moment, um, I think a lot of I got to question a lot of the technique of our batsmen at late at the moment. Is look, Test cricket is a beautiful arena to test your temperament and technique, and I just feel a lot of the batsmen at the moment is lacking that. I feel we're almost lacking a bit of identity, a little bit of how we want to approach with the bat, how we want to go forward. Because when you're getting bowled out for 118 in any format, it's not very healthy. It's actually very, very poor, if you ask me. And I kind of felt that the game is, for me, I'm still calling for it to be a draw, thanks to the few days it's been wasted, if I can call it that. But I also feel it's still no excuse for any poor batting performance anyway, because I felt even though that we're heading towards a draw because of the two lost days, it would have been nice for us to see South Africa finishing off on a high with their batting, rather than seeing this. Because now suddenly we're sitting with the results or the possibility of either England win or a draw, which is actually it's actually very, very sad. And let's go back in the second test. One of the biggest reasons why we lost the second test was our first innings was absolutely poor. So yeah, we're actually doing it once again. And for me, it tells me that what are we trying to invest in the long format? What are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to achieve 20 over limited over cricket, or is our priorities now not being set straight?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, we spoke about it before this match. Like we spoke about this, we warned ourselves about this. It was particularly mentioning that South Africa have a problem when the ball is doing something with the new ball. I know there's a lot of people maybe out there criticizing also Carl Verreynne for the way he's been batting recently. I mean, this whole top six, in my opinion, I don't think there's anybody that is safe in this top six. I've said this for a very long time. I want to see the right attitude, mentality, and composure from our batters because that's very important factors and attributes for Test cricket. we tend to, as fans, and I've noticed this countless times on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and other platforms where people speak about these things. I've noticed that there's a common trend to want to drop players quite quickly, particularly also in the test arena. Now, I can understand it in T20 cricket and ODIs that we want to pick on form and you want to rotate players, and if someone's performing badly, you want to take him out and put him in. But with the standard of domestic cricket around the world, Aaron, all around the world, the standard of
Yes.
domestic cricket all around the world, I feel there's a massive gap in the step up to test cricket and what you are facing there,
Yeah,
particularly
there
for our
is.
top
Yeah.
orders, particularly for the top order with a new ball. Now, in situations with Calvarena, for example, just to give a quick example, and as well, you can also talk about Temba Bavuma. I've heard a lot of people speak about the fact that they don't score enough centuries or they don't score centuries. Their role isn't necessarily always to get that hundreds. It's also their role should be to come in when there's some runs on the board and taking South Africa into that next, that's the next phase. But South Africa found themselves 3-4 down with 30-40 on the ball too many times for any player to play in their natural habitat, in their natural game. Ultimately, Calvarain has faced a new ball, batting as an opener almost, because every single time he comes to the crease, he's facing this new ball nipping around. And I feel that maybe perhaps the technique that he currently has is not conducive to that necessarily. He might need to add extra things to his game to try and combat that. Now, when I'm saying that the domestic cricket level is there's a massive gap between the two, if a batter bats at 5 in domestic cricket consistently in that position throughout his career, we can't necessarily expect them to be at exactly the same level when they come batting at 5 in Test cricket. You're facing a different ball game altogether. When Calvarena loses his wicket for the Western, when Calvarena comes into the crease with 4 wickets, 5 wickets down for Western Province, he's not facing Broad Anderson and Robinson coming in, getting the ball on that 50-cent piece and moving it in consistently in the dangerous zones. So that makes it so your technique is going to be caught out because you're not necessarily getting that practice unless you're going to play Test cricket. That's always been my concern. Now, when you look at players, I know it's hard because you have to look at the stats in the domestic scene and actually look how players bat. But I think that there's a stat that may be being overlooked that I've mentioned many times on this channel, and that is the conversion rates,
Mm.
particularly for our top order batters between 1 and 4. I look at our batters and I'm looking at their first class stats and I look at how many hundreds they score and how many 50s they score and check the conversion rates. If you can't score hundreds at domestic level, which is supposed to be poorer or weaker than international level, how do you expect to score hundreds at the top level, at the highest form at the game? And I think we need to look at those things because that conversion rate tells a lot of it tells you a lot about the attributes of a player. If I look at a player and I see him scoring 800s, 850s, that tells me that he has composure, patience, the mentality to be able to play under pressure because he's converting those hundreds, he's converting those 50s into hundreds. That tells you an attribute that we are lacking. I think we are lacking composure. We are lacking confidence in ability. We're lacking strategic game plans and implementing it. Our implementation of game plans has been very poor. It's like we can't switch when things go wrong. When you notice the ball is moving around the way it is, how can you continue playing the way you are? That first 3 wickets, particularly, was extremely poor. KP's decision to leave the ball, knowing that the ball is moving the way it is, angling in. From Cyril Ewer's perspective, the shot selection was poor. Dean Elgar, this is the third time he's been dismissed like this in the series, I think, or second time in the series he's been dismissed exactly the same way. Playing at the ball outside of off like that is dangerous, especially if your positioning is not right in the middle. And what I liked about Pope is his trigger movement to the off stump. He wasn't closing off his option of getting the bat to ball. That's what I liked about the way Ollie approached his game plan today. We were almost pushing towards the off stump and fourth stump with our standing positions, but we weren't giving ourselves an opportunity to play that ball that's cutting in at the pads because by the time you try and move your bat in front of your pad, it's too late the way that ball is moving. So I think that the technique from our batters and the shot selection was absolutely poor. But Aaron, I want to get your thoughts. What is going on with both sides? Because I don't think it's just South Africa. I mean, it's England too that struggling. Is it the pitch? Is it this good execution of the bowling, or is it just poor batting? What is your take on this?
It's not the pitch. It's not the pitch. And to be honest, how many years have been watching cricket at the Oval? For well over a decade. I don't think I can remember a single time in domestic or international cricket that's 17 wickets have fallen on a single day. It's the flattest pitch in the entire country. So I don't think it's the pitch. I just think it was a combination. England, after a very poignant and sombre start to the day's play, looked fully up for this. Right from that very first over, you could just see England were really hitting their lengths quite superbly. The accuracy was incredible, but let's be brutally honest. We have seen some good bowling, but from both sides today, we've seen some properly atrocious batting. No application. Application just went completely out of the window. Some terrible shot selection, some really, really poor decision making, and that is why 17 wickets have fallen and not even 300 runs have been scored over the course of this day's play. So I'm going to be completely honest. I think England are actually going to be a bit more disappointed than South Africa, in particular, considering at one point we were 100 for three. We were 18 runs behind, and all of a sudden you lose those wickets after the rain delay, and a 36-run lead is handy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, but it should be a lot more than that, and we should be around about 5 or 6 wickets down. It's not a hard pitch. The Oval is such a beautiful place to bat. It's consistent bounce. There aren't any demons in the surface, and yet we've made it look like an absolute minefield. So disappointing slightly for England, incredibly disappointed with South Africa. 118 all out within, what was it, 30-something overs. Terrible application, and some of the shots were just horrific. So from both sides, I think the first 2 days, the fact that they've been effectively postponed or cancelled, abandoned, whatever you want to call it, to be honest, I think that has played a massive role in this particular day's play. But I think both sides will be heading back into those dressing rooms, reflecting on today and thinking, we could have done a lot better here, lads, if we were just a bit more smart, a bit more intelligent, and applied ourselves a bit better.
Like, I don't have any excuses for this batting performance. Like I said on Twitter today, I said this is a syndrome of the last 5 years of selection mistakes that we've been making in the past. So yes, we must be critical of this as well. But there's also a degree of criticism that we need to have and understand the situation too. We have a lot of young, not young with regards to age, but newer test batters that are still trying to find out how to adapt their natural game plans for test cricket. And you can see them starting to get it almost seems like they're kind of confused about what is the right way to perform. Ashwani, from your perspective, what can you put your finger on with regards to both batting performances actually? Because I mean, South Africa's batting performance like this has been coming on a hell of a long time now.
Yeah, first of all, hello to everyone. Yeah, it's been a late night in India, but I think South Africa and England both showed a poor display of batting today. Obviously, the short selections are considered very dismal. Also, you should give credit to the bowlers as well as to the overcast conditions. It helped extendedly to swing the ball, and obviously, in today's eras, the batsmen played loads more white ball cricket. So I think techniques will be challenged, and what we saw today, I think South Africa's main issue for the past 2 3 years, which I previously said in the podcast as well, their issue is batting. And I think one thing South Africa need to do in future as well, if they want to persist with this batting lineup, then they should continue. If they want to change it, then they should segregate the players who is better for red ball cricket, who is better for white ball cricket. For example, you can give time to Adam Markram and Rassie van der Dussen in white ball cricket, because what I saw in past 6 to 7 months, Adam Markram's game is more suitable to white ball cricket. The amount of changes he has done to his technique. So if he wanted to come back to red ball cricket again, he need to score runs, lots of runs in the domestic cricket. So and Rassi has done well, but I think he didn't done too well as well in red ball cricket. Apart from that Pakistan tour, and obviously in India tour, he's played some crucial innings as well. So I think South Africa had to you can say that segregate that department of which is the better red ball batsman in the country at the moment. Obviously, they have to look out the domestic cricket as well. There are a lot of options like Peter Malan, Ryan Nicholton, who is playing in that test match. Obviously, is disappointing today because he looks to me is a good player, but I think you should give him a lot more chances to prove himself. The guys like Cyril Larby, these are also the quality domestic performers. And I would like to see David Bedingham back into the South African setup as well because he's a quality performer in domestic as well in county cricket. So they have to look at the players who has done well in the red ball cricket. And also one thing, South African selectors. Obviously, I am not. You can say that any professional players, but at the look of what I look in the Indian setup as well, which we saw in the past 20 years, that what selectors are looking at, they are looking at the averages of the players, who is the better player. For example, uh, Kyle Virani has scored runs at the average of 52 plus. He looks good in the stats, but you have to see that in which conditions he has scored runs, because obviously there is a large gap between the domestic cricket and the international cricket. But in which conditions he has scored runs? He has scored runs in flattest batting tracks, or which kind of bowlers he has scored runs, or he has scored in the tough batting tracks. I think if he had scored around 60, 70 in tough batting conditions, and at the average of above 35 to between 35 to 42, it will be respectable for me. If he had scored runs on the flattest tracks above 50, he will be exposed in obviously in English conditions where ball will little bit moves. I don't say these players are bad, but I think South Africa have to give time to these batters, because I think you can't expect the likes of Callises, even Customs, and De Villiers. These players are not made in one day, so South Africa need to get these players time as well. And I think over the time these players will get better and they will starting to score runs.
Yeah, you see, I've made this argument before. It's the timing of when you bring those players into the side. South Africa currently have a situation, like I said, with not a lot of experienced batters in the team. When Temba Bavuma comes back into the setup, you're sitting with a little bit more experience. That opens up more opportunities to maybe give some younger players with the right mentality and the right mentality, yes, and style of play that suits red ball cricket. Now, Justin, I want to ask you this question. Our domestic cricket is obviously the level that we're going to be comparing it to. I mean, obviously, our players need to play 4-day cricket to show that they can play red ball cricket and then get an opportunity to play for the test side and see if they have the ability to do so. What I'm afraid of from a South African selection perspective, it seems like they are just giving experienced batters, the batters that have been performing for a long period of time in domestic cricket, they are taking that experience as experience and selecting them over guys that could possibly be better and younger and for the future. And that's where my concern is when it comes to these players. And when they do pick an older player, there's an important metric that they are overlooking, and for me that personally is conversion rate, which I like to which I'm speaking about over here with regards to test cricket specifically. I'm not so worried about it in T20s and ODIs. I'm specifically worried about it in test cricket, because if you can't score centuries in test cricket, in domestic cricket, how do we expect our batters to be able to do it at the international level? So when you look at the likes of Peter Malan and you look at the likes of Cyril Irvia and you compare the two players, look at Peter Malan's conversion rate in domestic cricket compared to Cyril Irvia's. They're similar ages, but one provides a bigger opportunity more often for big hundreds than the other. And that's the difference between the two that I feel tells a lot about a player's character. Tells me that he's patient, tells me that he's composed, it tells me that he has a fighting spirit, and he doesn't give up. He tries to push past that milestone. That tells you a lot about those things. So when we're looking at it as a whole, our domestic system, do you think that our selectors are missing that aspect when it comes to selecting players?
I think let's start with the selection part, because I think that's the most important question. I think every South African at the moment is burning with that question at the moment. I think let's have a look at the lineup itself of this test match. I feel there's too many inexperienced batters in one lineup. If you want my honest opinion, because you cannot play a massive series against any opposition. So you could be playing Australia, you could be playing India in the subcontinent. You can't play a big side or any of the top four sides with an inexperienced middle order. So for me, then the question mark, I'm just going to add by saying the question mark would have to go is that means your players like Dean Alger. He's one of the seniors of the side. So you kind of expected Alger to step up, with all due respect, because you got such an inexperienced batting lineup. So which means it's fragile. You got your Carl Ferreira and Raul Rickerton. It's also not that they've played 20 test matches and they're suddenly experienced in these kind of levels. So there needs to be that experience. That, yes, you can point the fingers, but Vuma's not there, and that's maybe causing the batting order to be fragile. But you also need to point fingers to your seniors as there. That's why I also blame for a guy like a Markram. I think it would have been ideal for Markram, your Alger, to step up. And I listened to Herschel Gibbs. They had an interview a few days ago, and Herschel Gibbs and all of them were saying, give Markram another crack, because it's also not that he's a bad player. He's just in a very, very bad place, or his mindset is not in a good place at the moment. But you need to look at your experience at this case. If you saying domestically, if you're selecting older players or more experienced players, then you should be backing your seniors then in general. But then I need to look. I need to question the selection policy of CSA, as in how do we get to a conclusion of who plays where? And I think there's also a lack of clarity. I also think as a captain myself, I just think there's a lot of players that's playing outside their natural batting position also. So I kind of would also want to say is maybe it's also not a bad idea to start playing around with the batting order, but because Herschel Gibbs was pointing out the other night, you got Markram that's been playing most of his career as an opener. Suddenly he's playing a 4. You have Carl's batting a 6. In my opinion, is a little bit low for him. That's just my opinion. And then Ryan Rickerton suddenly is batting at 4-5, which is suddenly a very high position in that level, considering he's still very inexperienced. And if your 4-5 and 6 is inexperienced, that's not a good sign. That's not healthy at all. As much as you want to give youngsters the exposure, as much as you want to see new blood in the test and you want to go forward, but we also need to maybe ask ourselves that should we be blooding too many players in these series, or should we have one or two experienced guys there first? And maybe blood them slowly. Maybe have more touring games, for an example.
That's the big problem, is the amount of games you play. It's not enough. And that's obviously a major problem with regards to that. But when I'm looking at it and seeing which players, it's also the right players. You need to pick the right players with the characteristics for Test cricket. Test cricket is not the same as T20 and ODI cricket. You need a different type of characteristic and character to play. To play at this level, because it's really annoying that I've been speaking about this for 6 years now. When we had Amla, when we had Dean Alger, Stephen Cook, Amla, those guys, AB de Villiers, all of those guys in the team, we knew ahead of time. I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to mute you until you speak, Ashwani, because there's a noise in the background. So when we started picking players during that period, should have been the mindset should have been, we need to play guys with the right characters that are not just give people opportunities that have experience at domestic level only. That's not the only thing that counts, in my opinion. Just because you've played 100 games in domestic cricket doesn't mean that you now have deserved the call up. If you look at Rassi, look at Sarel, look at the experienced guys we have given opportunity, I think their games are a lot more difficult to tweak than a youngster's game coming through the system. There's a lot more for them to learn and add to their game. They're a lot more flexible of still because their game is still developing and they're still learning to find their perfect, how can I say, their perfect whatever flow with regards to
Style?
their style or perfect style. There's the word. The perfect style for themselves to help them survive. This cricket's a lot about survival as well. You need a certain type of characteristic with regards to yourself as well as a fighting personality inside of you, a tough personality that tells you not to give up. Because in Test cricket, you're going to miss opportunity. The ball's going to miss the bat a lot of the times. It's not ODI cricket and T20 cricket where if you get a dot ball, ooh, flip, the pressure's on. I need to get the next ball. I need to get the next ball. That's kind of been driven into our players because of the white ball arena. That necessity to want to feel bat on ball every single delivery. That is a problem I feel that we have in Test cricket. Because then you see wickets like Dean Algar, where he's trying to push for the ball where he doesn't need to. Where you see certain players nicking it outside off because they're pushing at deliveries that they don't need to. Leaving is also an art. And South Africa did not leave well today. They don't leave the balls. They don't leave enough in the series in general. And that is my concern. It's about decisions. The wrong decisions are made too many times. But that's because I feel that a lot of wrong decisions are made in domestic cricket. You see, it's masked up in domestic cricket because you don't have 4 world-class bowlers running in at the crease, bowling at you. So the margin for error is a lot less. So that means your decision-making has to be better. And our decision-making is poor. So now my point of view is, if you're going to give a person an opportunity, you need to obviously give the person that has probably the best chance of succeeding in Test cricket. We've got people like Mark Boucher. We've got people that understand the game and what's necessary for a good performance in Test cricket. What it takes to guts it out and bat and put in a performance and really put in a top performance. We've got the right staff and the mentality in there to be able to pick that out. I don't feel that's happening. I don't feel that the right players are being given have been given opportunities, and I know that I can. It's easier for me to speak about this now when we're sitting in the situation that we're in, but I did speak about this before the match, the series started. I said South Africa need to have a clear plan, and I think why fans are so disappointed is because there is no plan. We are not. They don't communicate with us that this is what we're going to be doing. They never do that. They go their own way, and then afterwards they explain. But the explanation never matches with the decision that they make. So, for in this particular game, we all said it. Ryan Rickelton should come into this team, be given the entire series. It's the perfect time to give a youngster opportunity because he's coming off a good run of form in England. So it would be the perfect time to maybe drop one player, just one. They could have just taken one player out and played Ryan Rickelton and blood him in, because that will give him the nice structure around him to be able to see what other guys are doing and then perform. But now we made 4 changes into this match. You've got 3 new fresh players, the 2 new players in the team in your middle order that are trying to find their form. You've got 6 players that are trying to find their form now, and you expect the youngster to now stand out and perform. It's a lot more different for a guy like Ollie Pope, who was blooded in slowly into this team. I watched his development since his debut in South Africa. I watched his development and how they slowly built his confidence to the point where he is now feeling a lot more confident about his game. He's not the finished product yet. He still has a long way to grow.
If I could just hop on to that point, Khalid, the difference there is that England play a lot more Test cricket as well. So we can afford to give Ollie Pope that chance, that prolonged run at number 6, and then tinker around with his batting position at some point in the future. And I think back to Justin's point, it was fantastic. The issue that South Africa have got, if we're looking on the bigger picture, looking ahead to the Future Tours programme, they've got even less Test cricket. So if we're looking at this from the bigger perspective, you've got even less opportunities in the future to give a Ryan Rickelton, a Keegan Peterson, for example, a Carl Verreynne, any of these new faces. I've seen Reynard van Tonder's name thrown into the mix as well, just for good measure. It's difficult to blood these youngsters and give them proper prolonged runs in the team when you're playing a couple of series every single year. It's not the same as an England or an India or an Australia where you've got multiple Test series in all these different conditions. South Africa simply don't have enough Test matches to play. So that's the real thing to look out for heading into the future. This is a problem which is appearing now. It could get even worse in the future, though, and that's something which South Africa have got to be very careful of heading into this next Test Championship cycle.
Yeah, and that gives even more reason, Ashwani, for them to be a little bit more. They need to get their decisions right. It gives them, it's more pressure for them to do so. Ashwell Prince said something very interesting. Spend 3 hours at the crease, you'll have 3 to 4 hours at the crease, you'll have a century. It seems to me that South Africa gets bothered by every single bad delivery that they get. When their bat gets beaten, or they get scary and shaky, they don't reset after every ball. And I feel that's a mental thing that they need to maybe add to their game. Refresh, reset, and go again after every single delivery. You looked at the way Carlos used to bat. He used to put himself in a bubble, reset, give himself time at the crease, spend time at the crease. Don't worry about your strike rate. Don't worry about how many balls you faced for your 100. Don't worry about all those things. Spend time at the crease. We don't do that. We don't look like we're trying to do that. Ashwani, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a famous quote from Jiteshwar Pujara. He said that if you spend 1,000 ball a day, you become a very good Test cricketer. So I think it's your point is really valid. If you spend time on the crease, the former players like Sunil Gavaskar, Jeffrey Boycott. I think Sunil Gavaskar has typical method of very interesting method to concentrating the batting. He just poke like this. If he a little bit distracted, he just poke like this to concentrate to himself because he didn't like that verbal noises outside which players normally do. So I think if South African batsmen, that young batsman, which should talk to the former players like Gary Custon, Jack Callis, how they think about their approach when they go to the batting. What's their mental approach before they going to bat? So I think this will help them because I think Test cricket is all about focus and your. I think the main thing is temperament. I think temperament is the main thing in Test cricket, which I think the young South African batters little bit lacking behind. Over the years, when they grew and they play more matches, it will develop in them. I think the best thing they should spend more time at the crease. It will help them to settle around when they first came to the crease. So I think South Africa team should mentor the guys like Jack Callis in these tools because they help them mentally how to you consider mentally ready when they goes out to the bed because these typical former test players help you to prepare before the game. Obviously, it's look like very old fashioned, but I think there's a still room for these things because we all know these bad baseball things are coming in the test cricket. But I think test cricket is still played in that way, which is played in 1877 onwards. I think there is the same method to play test cricket as well. I think I think South Africa should acquire the services of the guys like Gary Custer, Jack Callis, which help them. Obviously, it will help them to the younger players like Kyle Verane. Uh, Obviously, the upcoming players like Ryan Van Tonder and the players who are playing in these 11s to help them how to approach the Test cricket.
I know, I know people are like Lorenzo is saying, well, with all due respect, Khalid, but we should really stop these excuses. I'm not making excuses. I've said 100 million times that we should. So, like, I'm not making excuses for them. So, with regards to South Africa's batting performances, I'm not making an excuse. I'm making an analysis of what has been wrong in the past. Now, let's look at another aspect of it that I'm really irritated about. Is maybe also Justin Sammons as the batting coach. We're not really hearing a lot from his side, coming out and speaking about it. We're also not really necessarily seeing um, any information regarding him. He doesn't necessarily have any test experience with regards to giving the players that aspect of the game. Um, but what my problem is that I'm not seeing improvements. I'm not seeing visible changes. There was visible changes with regards to Aiden Markram against India when he tried to change his stance, moving off stump, moving leg stump, moving middle stump. He tried to do something specific to try and stop himself from hitting that ball every single time. Now, that's something maybe that they spoke about, but I'm not seeing changes. That's my concern. I'm not seeing any improvement. I'm seeing the same mistakes being made, the same lack of application being applied. Even in the test matches that we won, we batted crap. Maybe one player saved us in series before that, in a couple of series before that, 1 or 2 plays now and again. But we've been batting crap for a long time now. This has not been something that's only come on this year. This is a 6-year problem, I feel. Towards the end of Amla's career, towards the end of AB's career, we still had AB saving us towards the end of his career in matches. So we didn't. So that shows that there's still an issue. There was an issue with regards to the stability at the top order. We have a very bad issue with the top three. It is extremely fragile at the moment. We need to improve it. Let's get your final thoughts over here, Aaron, Justin, Ashwani.
Oh, we'll start. I thought you were going to start with Justin at the top. I thought we were going to go around. Go on, Justin. You go first.
Yeah, Justin first, Ashwani, and then Aaron.
Yeah, you got your clockwise directions mixed up.
I just feel at the moment what was said. I feel for a batting coach, I think he's been very, very quiet of late. I do feel we need to figure out what is we need to sort out what is our priorities, as in what is the direction that we want to go to. If we want to become the best test side in the world, then obviously a lot of work still needs to be done. And you can only blame for the past 2-3 years. The common phrase of South African sport has been, we're in a rebuilding phase. We're rebuilding. It's a new testing time. It's a new generation. But that can only be used for so long. Because when you're building, there needs to be a common direction. We need to know where is this heading. It's like, it doesn't help me saying, this is our goals. Yes, there's 20 different goals, and this is how we're going to get there. But in essence, as cricket lovers, as fans, great that you're speaking about we want to win the Test World Championship, we want to win the World Cup, we want to be number one, we want XYZ to be number one in the world or whatever. But then it needs to go to the question, how are we going to get there? What is the direction to get there? We need to see it. And as a cricket captain myself, you don't mind the odd loss. You don't mind the odd series defeat. But while you're at it, I'm more based off, I want to see improvement. Every game that especially my side, every game that we played, I thrive in seeing improvement. I don't care how much the improvement is, but I want to see something. And for South Africa, I think the same needs to be said. Is that this game we had 2 centuries and the rest, it was just very unlucky based, or what? Because our fixtures is only going to get more and more difficult as we approaching Australia. So if you somehow don't beat England, we're going to be forced to having to try and beat Australia in Australia to be in the final. Or if we do somehow escape with a draw, we would need to beat Australia at least once. And to play Australia in Australia, yes, we got a good record there, but it's still a tall ask.
Okay,
Well,
before
it
you
is,
guys end off, before you guys end off, there's something breaking that happened now, so I need to first
go on.
try to find a way on how we can play this for you guys. So I just spoke about Justin Sammons. He spoke in the press conference today.
Are you joking?
So I'm gonna play it for you guys, the audio file, so we can listen to what he had to say. Let's do that straight away. Let me just see how I'm gonna do this. Never done it like this before. Is it this one? Yeah, that's that one. Alrighty. Let's listen to what he has to say. Interested to hear, actually, in fact. Where is it now? Here's it. Cool. There we go. Oh my God. Wait. Oh,
Can I just say we've just spent 1 minute and 30 seconds listening to nothing. So apologies to all the viewers out there. But
why didn't you tell me that there's nothing playing?
I just wanted to see how long we could keep up the charade for.
I can hear everything. That's why
Can
I'm
you?
confused.
Well, that's fantastic,
Yeah.
Khalid. We can't. So Justin Sammons could have just, read out this lovely monologue, and we wouldn't have a clue.
No, when you hear what he said, you're gonna be irritated. Wait, let me just see how I can. Wait,
We
I know how I'm gonna do
we
it.
need to listen it separately. Listen them.
No, no, no. I know how to do it now. I made a mistake. Well, thanks, Aaron, for leaving me for 1 minute and saying you can't hear anything, bro. Jeez. You're way to embarrass a person on live flipping review show. Flip it out. Okay, let me try. Let me try that again. Okay. I have
Take
to go.
two.
Yeah. Let's take two. Damn it.
For joining us this evening, everyone.
There we go.
Can you hear now?
Today's press conference
Okay.
featuring the Proteas batting coach Justin Sammons. We will take one question at a time, and I think we'll just get straight into it. Who would like to kick us off? First?
And Justin, obviously things are not going according to plan with that. We've gone through a lot of reasons, inexperience and conditions and so on and so on. But what do you think really the issue is?
Yeah, if we knew the answer to that, we probably wouldn't find ourselves in that position. So, I mean, the reality is we've also got to give the opposition credit. They bowled really, really well. Got the ball in the right area probably 80% of the time, and continually ask questions of us. I think if we look at today, then I would, if we're hypercritical, we could say probably our contact points, our bat angles could have been better. It's not to say we wouldn't have got out to those deliveries, but at least we're giving ourselves a better chance. So from that point of view, a technical point of view, that's something that we've been working on. We can continue to do so. We didn't necessarily give our wickets away through mental errors. It really, at the end of the day, was execution. And on the day, they were better than us. Obviously, throughout the tour, I suppose it's generally been the case. For what we've been missing is partnerships. That big partnership, that 100+ partnership. But for that to happen, obviously individuals need to make their starts count, which unfortunately hasn't happened on this tour.
So first and foremost, confusion over there. It wasn't mental errors. It was technical errors. Okay, and then fix the technical errors if that's the bloody problem. Like, what the flip? He doesn't know what. First of all, he says he doesn't know what's wrong. That's a alarm bell for me.
That's a red
and-
flag. It is.
What do you
That's
guys
a
think?
massive red flag. Yeah, I'm absolutely shocked by that, to be completely honest. I mean,
Okay,
I don't even know how to answer that. I mean, surely you must know what's wrong. You're working with them every single day.
Yeah, like this is. I'm getting the same vibe that I got from Benkenstein when he told us he doesn't know what's going on, what's wrong with the batting. I mean, what the hell? Okay, let's move on. Let's see if he redeems himself.
Justin, this match has been played in extraordinary circumstances. For a long time, you guys wouldn't have known when or even if it was going to go ahead. I'm not trying to give you an out to make an excuse for the batting, but does that the kind of thing that can't help, especially for batters, to not know whether they should be focusing on playing in the next few hours?
Yeah, we don't want to make excuses. It is extraordinary circumstances, and I think the reality is everybody in that change room felt the need to pay the necessary respect. So I wouldn't put it down to that. At the end of the day, that change room only gets stronger from experiences like this. You know, you mentioned that it isn't fairly inexperienced batting lineup. I think probably of the top 8 today, one has played Test cricket in England before. So, you know, all these experiences will go a long way, hopefully in reaping rewards sooner rather than later.
So my issue with that again is, sorry, I just kind of laugh because I'm going to stop at this a lot. My problem with that is they what I'm getting from that is that he's going to give extended runs then to players, get them chances to get the experience in the middle and get themselves into form, etc., so that they can become better. But then they need to be making the right choices with regards to decisions and not making these crazy changes every single time something goes wrong. So yeah, I'm not so happy with the first two questions. It's just with the first two answers.
Ollie Robinson's been a bit of a difference maker in the last couple of matches, and how do you go about trying to get after someone who's due to put in the same spot?
You know, again, we've got to give him credit. He's been brilliant. He's got the ball in the right area. I think his lengths have been superb. And then obviously, yeah, the way that the ball's nipped around hasn't made it easy. I think, you know, we've got to keep following our processes and keep trying to do what we've spoken about and what the guys are prepared to do in terms of being decisive in our decision making, decisive in our movements, and then, as I mentioned before, make sure that those contact points and bad angles are giving us our best chance if we do make a mistake.
Aaron, the contact points, or Ashwani, what is your understanding of the contact points that he's talking about over there? If you guys want to have a go at that.
Ashwani, do you want to go, or would you like me to? I think you're on mute. There we go.
Who should go? Who's going?
Yeah, Aaron.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, in terms of the bat angles, it's pretty obvious. It's the angle of the bat face. So where they're actually playing it is the contact point. It's where the ball's hitting the bat. And I'm guessing what he's saying is that the alignment isn't exactly straight. It isn't exactly where it should be in English conditions, which is playing the ball nice and late with a straight bat. So again, that comes down to technique, but it comes back onto that overarching factor, which is that if you're the batting coach, you know, you are partly culpable for that. You are responsible. You're meant to be working with these guys in order to sort out those techniques. So in fairness, he does make a good point there. At times in this series, South Africa with the contact points, I think they have been pushing at the ball as well, which I think is a very valid thing to bring up. But again, it comes back onto that first question. I'm still a bit shocked by that, to be honest. I really am, when it sounded like visible confusion, to be brutally honest. So that first question, which wasn't a particularly tough question, but I mean, he does make a valid point there in terms of the technique. He makes a valid point about experience, but again, if it is down to technique, that has to be worked on. But then again, I suppose it comes on to the other factor is they are inexperienced. So how can you work in it when these guys are playing their first tour of England?
Yeah. What you guys don't know about Justin Sammons is that he was the coach at the Lions, the batting coach at the Lions, before he got the job at the Proteas. So you can see the step up, even from a coaching perspective. You can instantly see the step up. Ashwani?
Yeah, I think if you take the Justin Sammons statement, I think the South African young batters need to work on their techniques. Obviously, they are inexperienced. Uh, Most of them has first tour of England, but I will take Justin Sammons' comments as little bit confusing. But whatever I heard or listened about Justin Sammons' approach of towards batting, I think he has done well with the batters like Rassi Van der Dussen. We saw his previous podcast with Rassi. He tell about the his batting against spin has massively improved with the work of Justin Sammons. So I think the technique is work in progress. I think it will get better with the time. But I think it's more of a mental approach of the players, which will help them to challenging the condition, or they can bet. I can give you the example of two of the toughest, mentally tough players who you can say that don't have that compact technique. The players which I mentioned is Steve Waugh and Javed Miandar. Steve Waugh is totally is mentally very tough guy. Due to his mental toughness, that guy has scored 10,000 runs, around 11,000. He first came as a bowling all-rounder. Same with the guy like Javed Miandar, who is not very technically sharp player, but I think with his mental toughness has great that that guy has scored around over 8,000 runs. So I think I will say cricket is more about mental game, and obviously you can work on your technical aspect of the game when you play it, and you will get better over time. You have another example of Mr. Hashim Amla as well. Hashim Amla in 2004 when he first came to against India, when I first saw him, he looks very, you can say that uh, bottom hand tight player, very technically bottom hand tight player. So I at first look I saw how this player will be successful in international arena, but after that you see different Hashim Amla. He worked on his backlift stance, and you see his punches will be all fan of Hashim's punches as well. So I think you can develop your technique over the time, but I think you should be mentally tough, which is I think the main thing for me.
Okay, let's continue with this to get the final thoughts. It's not long left.
Differences Marco down to make and Elizabeth to guess the fact that Manchester especially was in the other team for that match.
Yeah, look, he's had a good game so far. I think he batted really well in difficult circumstances, conditions, and situation. He showed a maturity that's beyond his years. He's put a lot of work into his batting, and slowly he is reaping the rewards. In terms of Manchester, look, that decision was made, and I think everybody in our change room thought it was the right decision. At the end of the day, we didn't get the game far enough along for it to actually count. So
That's true.
yeah, I think you can't really look back at that and say if this, if that. The decisions were made, and in our minds they were correct, and we move on. Yeah.
Good.
So do you think you're getting batters from the domestic setup who are almost ready to play international cricket?
Nope.
Or are they far
Look, I mean, I think there's a massive difference, I presume, in any first-class setup around the world compared to Test cricket. It is the highest level, and you are going to be tested in ways in Test cricket that you aren't domestically. I think it doesn't matter where you are in the world, that's going to be the case. So look, and again, even guys who have played 100 tests, they probably don't feel that they quite are where they want to be. Everybody's striving to improve, striving to get better. So it's a difficult one for me to answer. I'll maybe just keep it at that. But what I can say is the guys are putting in a lot of work behind the scenes. We own that we haven't been good enough. We know that. We take that as a batting unit. But we're working hard to try and get better, to try and improve, to try and get to the standards that we need to get to. That is a fact, and I'm positive that, again, sooner rather than later, we will start reaping those rewards.
So basically, we're waiting until we reap those rewards. So okay, some decent points he made there. That is true about Test cricket and the levels which we spoke about. Sorry guys, I know it's dark. We got load shedding, so apologies. We're gonna have to end the stream very soon. So yeah, so he did make some decent points with regards to that. Let's get your final thoughts, Aaron, and then Ashwani, we can end off with you.
Yeah, I think that was actually, decent recovery from that first question. He did make some valid points towards the end of that, and I do feel sympathy, He said it himself. They are all working the hardest that they can. They're only humans at the end of the day, so there is some sympathy to be had. But again, it comes back to Justin points yet again. It's all about direction. It's not just about putting in the hard work, it's about putting in the correct work. And that is what South Africa will have to do in the batting departments in order to reach that next level in the Test arena.
They're only humans after all. Go, Ashwani.
Blown, man. Nice. Very nice.
Oh, you on mute? Sorry, I muted you. My bad. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you look at South African team from past 1 or 2 years, they relied on smaller and grit contributions, and has achieved some amazing things like the result against New Zealand and India, what we saw. But I think they have regularly shown uh, they can bat. Even we saw that Indian series. These are some of the toughest wickets which they played in. I think it's more tougher than that English conditions which South African batsmen play. Obviously, it's their home ground, which also gave advantage to them. But I think uh, which the lines which I spoken earlier, I think the technique is work in progress. I think the main thing as a batsman, you need to be mentally very strong. And I think Justin Sammons, what we saw him, he has done really well with the guys so far. Obviously, it's very easy to criticize someone because batting coach position is very difficult, and it's same like wicketkeeper. If you catches the ball, you have you no one gives credit to you. If you drop, then all criticism is up on you. So I think we have to give time to Justin Sammons because these all South African players are inexperienced, especially that middle order. After 2-3 series, we can analyze where Justin Sammons go as a batting coach. But we saw what he has done so far, especially against Spain, because South African batters, when they come to subcontinent, they are obviously called weak against leg spinners because they pass record against the likes of Shane Warne as well. But you saw how they playing Yuzvendra Chahal. I think it's the, you can say, the effort of Mr. Justin Simmons and Mr. Mark Boucher as well. So I think and the technique of playing swing bowling, I think it will help over the time. The guys, when they will play some county cricket, it will help them there. And I think coaches are working with them. And I think you should need Justin Simmons more time. It's, I think, very easy to critical to him. I think I will give him more time, and after uh, Australia series and 3 2 more series, I will conclude where he is at the coach.
Yeah, I would like to see then improvement if that's the case, innings by innings. But okay, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Don't forget to smash the like button, comment, share, subscribe, click that notification bell for all future videos. Don't forget to download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every month. That's the latest issue. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. Can you also please become a patron today if you want to help grow South African cricket and you want to help promote South African cricket? Link is on the screen as well as in the description. And go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all of your updates. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another review show. Hopefully, South Africa can bat way better in their second innings and actually get those wickets because you know how we struggle with the tail. So I hope that they can take those wickets early on in the first session. I hope that, I don't know if they're going to give us how the time is going to work with regards to the game. Obviously, the half an hour after will probably be available, dependable on the light. I would have preferred that half an hour to be made up in the morning. 10:30 start would have been probably a better option. But it is what it is. But guys, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another show. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend as well. Try to enjoy it as much as possible. Cheers, everybody. Peace.